Where were you on the 12th of December in 2011? Where were you on Monday last week at 4 p.m.? Where were you at 3 in the afternoon on the 7th of November in 2014? You might not know the exact answers to these questions, but Google might. Hey, what up? It's your boy MobbJustice back again with another video. And for today, we're talking about location services and how much some of these devices, smartphones, computers, laptops, but specifically these things, how much data they're actually sending to companies like Google and other third parties about where you are, where you've been, and most likely where you're going to go. I personally was actually quite shocked by just how much data was being collected, because they can actually show you like a history of where you've been and where you're coming from, and someone might actually be able to build a profile of where you're going to go. On the whole, it's a positive thing what location services have been able to do, but there's always a danger that someone might use that data against you, especially in this world where things like social engineering are being used. Now, GPS systems and location services have actually come quite a long way. Gone are the days where people had the old, the maps of old, and also gone are the days when all you had was one of those GPS products that you could push on the dash of your car. Now it's become so much more sophisticated, and companies like Google can actually use location data to actually tell you quite a bit around what's going on in a city, in a country, in a nation, and the like. Recently, Google's location data has actually been used as a way to actually track economic activity in the absence of formal economic data in a number of countries, because they can actually see your location for different people, and it can actually show where the movements have been around different parts of town, businesses, and the like. Additionally, because so many people make use of Google Maps, for example, the fact that there is that location data actually makes it useful for actually pulling congestion data. So if you ever use Google Maps to actually get to work, to and from work, for example, and it's able to tell you where the congestion is, maybe suggest an alternative route, it's pulling all of that data. So it is useful, but just as a consumer, as a person, as a citizen, especially in this increasingly connected world, it's good to just be aware of what data you're actually giving out to certain services and applications, and to actually control it where you can. So right now I'm actually just going to show you guys how you can actually check whether or not Google specifically has a record of where you've been and where you've come from, and what type of permissions you have on your Google account. It's one of those things, we all have Google accounts. I mean, YouTube, is a Google product. So if we head on over to the desktop, and if you open, here we have the Google account, and then if you just go to click on your, little profile, and then you go to manage your Google account, it'll open, something else. And then you want to go to, on the left side, you want to go here where it says data and personalization. Click that, and then you scroll down to the bottom, and it will actually show you some of your activity, some of your activity controls and the like. But the interesting one would be here, web and app activity, your location history, and then YouTube history. So you can see that for these purposes my location history is on, and if we click this little arrow, and if you click that, it'll show you the fact that this is how your location history works. And we can see that by this little check mark, it shows that it's on. And what's interesting is that if you click here where it says manage activity, let's just wait for it to open. You can actually see this entire sort of this sort of breakdown, like a summary, of where you've been. And you can actually see, myself. I live or come from Zimbabwe, but live in South Africa at the moment. So it will also give you this sort of little summary of what your life has been. And if you actually go here under year, month, and day, it can actually sort of tell you, where you were on a certain date. So randomly, if we said 2014, and then we said in April of that year, on any day, perhaps the first, it will show you that, I had no location history, during this time. So it can't actually pull that data. Maybe another day, 2017, and then we say the same day, April the 1st, still 2019. Yeah, so if you saw like 2019 on a certain day, it can actually show you by month, different areas and the like, Rustenburg, Pretoria, all of that. It will give you that, and then you can actually go down by date and day and just see where you've been. So that's how you can do that. And then if we sort of go back, you can actually then go back and try and control, if we come back to this screen, then that you can actually manage your location history, and just go here and either switch this on and off, just so that it's not tracking you as much. And then you can actually click the devices on this account, just so that you can check which devices follow you, because you can have your location on a tablet, on a laptop, you can have it running on a smartphone if you have more than one phone. All of those issues, if you're using, let's say, some type of connected device, maybe GPS that you've logged into in a vehicle, all of those things are all tracking your location in one way or the other. So it's just good to know and see what type of permissions you've given to your devices around that. Now, beyond the desktop, you can also check what your location history has been and your devices and all of that using your smartphone. Given the fact that your smartphone is probably the device that you carry around a lot, it will be quite important just to see how you can do that. Google apps tend to run about the same on Android and iOS, but for this particular issue, finding the information is actually quite slightly different on the two devices. Now, just to begin with, I'm gonna start off with how you can find your location history and stuff like that, and see whether or not Google is tracking you, starting off with Android devices. And if I just pull up my phone here, if I just pull up my phone here and we head on to Google, you open the Google app, and to show you your usual home interface and things like that. And then if you click your profile and then you go to manage your Google account, as we did on the desktop, it should be noted that Android is the one that runs most similarly to what you see on the desktop. You just go down and then you go to manage your data and personalization, and then go down and you see that there is a location history, and just like we saw on the desktop, you click the little arrow and then it will pull up your location history, and then you can go and then manage your activity, and you see the check mark as we did on the desktop. So that's how you find it there. Heading over to the side of iOS, I'm just gonna pull up the phone here, and then if we head on over to Google once again, and then you'll see that the home page is about the same, but the differences come when you click on your profile and then you go to manage your Google account. You see that part of the interface is actually a bit different. if you go into personal information and privacy, just like we saw, you'll see that this part is completely different. And with this, you have to go down to the bottom, and unlike on Android or the desktop, here you go to timeline in Google Maps. Then you click that, and then it will load up the page. And then you'll see that it pulls up the same summary that we started seeing on the desktop earlier on, just an indication, and that's how you can see all of that information. So that's been it in terms of this video. Thank you to everyone who was watching. This one was not to scare, but rather to inform. As we said at the beginning, you know, technology and the internet has really done quite a bit of good for us, and we all love using, you know, some of these services like Google Maps, the ability to follow your Uber ride, location services, being able to just Google, you know, perhaps, you know, what time is it in Halifax, that type of thing. But more importantly, it's just letting people know what type of data you are sharing out there, and sort of allowing you to have greater control around these issues. In addition to Google Maps, today we just focused on Google and Google Maps and what it's doing in terms of keeping your location history. It should be known that other third-party apps also tend to use your smartphone's location or your different devices locations, and they do in some cases collect data. So for example, if you think of Snapchat or Instagram, and they have location filters, for example, able to tell you where you are, give you posts from your localized region, for example. Things like that actually are using your device's location to show you some of that content. We've used the example of Uber and Bolt that use integrated Google Maps to do, you know, what they do. And all of these apps, you know, have different permissions to different parts of your phone. So another good tip is just before opening up a new app, or when you first set up an app, or you just check what type of permissions you've given to that app. If you've been using certain apps for a while, go into each app individually. Both iOS and Android allow you to do such things. Go into each app individually and see what are they doing. In some cases, you give your smartphones, for example, access to your camera or your microphone, you know, your location. So all of these are personal pieces of information that you need to just be mindful of, and just make sure that you control what type of data you are sharing. So that's been it. Thank you so much, as I said, to everyone who was watching. Let us know, did you know that Google is keeping this detailed history? I was actually quite shocked when I first found out, and I actually tested it out. When I first found out, you know, I think you switch it on. I can't remember whether I deliberately switched it on or whether I went to check, but there's actually an option where you can actually check a certain option, and Google will email you once a month all the places that you've been, you know, in a month. That's, you know, that's how far some of these things go. So let us know what you think. Is this something that you knew about? Does it scare you that you know, your smartphone or other devices can collect this much data on you? Let us know in the comments. Otherwise, I will catch you guys all in the next one.
Hey, this is Baby G, and you're watching the Mob Justice channel. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Live it, love it, like it. This is the Mob Justice TV.
Yeah.